Now let Kamal Sibal come in.
But,
Rehan, I'll come to you, but let Kamal Sibal come in. Yes, please.
See,
yes, Kamal Sibal, go ahead, please.
Debate, we were speculating, before we started this debate, we were speculating what Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif may say in his speech. And I had told you that he's going to emphasize Kashmir. And he has done so, and I agree with you, he has done so in much harsher, stronger, more elaborate terms than even in his last UNGA speech. He devoted far too much of his speech to the Kashmir issue, raking up all the old specious, untenable arguments that Pakistan has used for 66 years. So I can't understand how he thinks that the arguments that they've used for 6.5 decades have any relevance today. And I also agree with you that this business of terrorism being implanted on Pakistan soil looks like it's a bit comical, because it's Pakistan that has been described as the epicenter of terrorism, and it has spawned so many of these groups. Its security forces have been nurturing these jihadi organizations, and for them today to say that, pretend that it has come from abroad and they have no hand in this, is making a mockery. The third is that, if you look at his speech, when he began by talking about sustainable development, which was a very confused beginning, and where he linked that to peace and stability, regional peace and stability, and I knew he was somehow going to bring India in, because even for sustainable development, he was trying to target India. And then, of course, he said what he had to say about Kashmir. And then he went on to frontally oppose India's quest for permanent membership of the Security Council, and then he sought parity with India on the nuclear question. He wanted Pakistan to become a member of the NSG and wanted Pakistan's non-proliferation credentials, and that also to my mind was a bit comical, because Pakistan has been the source of proliferation of nuclear technologies to Iran, to Libya, and to all sorts of countries, and we know this affair of their AQ Khan and everything else. But they have no sense of, how should I say, a balance when they talk about this. There is no self-consciousness that when they're going to say things, they will be queried and they will be looked upon carefully as to what the Pakistan is trying to say, but they're not self-conscious about it at all. And therefore, your point, Arnav, that they have scored a self-goal or he's put himself in a tight spot, I don't think it bothers them very much, because they've been doing this all these decades and they've got away with it. And people are going to ignore this. And last thing I would like to say is that Prime Minister Modi would be well advised not to try and respond to this
what surprises me.
It's not worth it.
Yeah. Okay, don't respond to the speech. But what surprises me here is that the most obvious question, Maruf, which will be asked is not why you picked up Kashmir so much this time, why you relatively forgot it last year, or whether you pick up Kashmir in greater or lesser detail, depending on how much trouble you are domestically.
Absolutely. You are, to that extent, you're spot on, that whenever Pakistani politicians are in a crisis or trying to re-establish their credentials, as Bilawal Bhutto is trying to establish his credentials in the year that he's turned the right age to start voting, you start chest thumping on Kashmir.
There's opportunism.
I think, I'd like to address issues brought up by Rehan and Air Marshal Abid Rao. Air Marshal, I have great respect for you, sir, but you keep saying that India has not fulfilled its commitments vis-a-vis Pakistan. Look at the UN resolutions. It's there on the internet. It says very clearly that part 2 of the resolution, where we all got stuck, whether India or Pakistan, was requiring your complete withdrawal from the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir before we could go on to part 3, which was to seek to determine the will of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. The word plebiscite is not used in the resolution, by the way, if you haven't read it. But anyway, read it and then you say who let which side down. The second point I want to raise, and I wanted to bring this out much earlier, that when Pakistan's Prime Minister says in his rather, Pakistan-centric speech, which was expected of him, that fighting terrorism planted on Pakistani soil, I'd like to draw your and Ms. Rehan's attention to a couple couple of authors, Stephen Tankel's book, Storming the World Stage, The History of Lashkar-e-Toiba. It's very clearly, it's a creation within Pakistan, sustained not just by the governmental agencies like Nawaz Sharif's government, which gives donations to Lashkar-e-Toiba and Jamaat-ud-Dawa because it's a charity, but other organizations.
Or Musharraf who diverts funds.
But look at the writings of Ahmed Rashid, look at the writing of Imtiaz Gul, look at the writings of Murtaza Razvi. Do I need to quote more people outside of Mr. Hussain Haqqani and of course Khalid Ahmed, who keeps regularly writing in Indian newspapers, to say that Pakistan's caught up in a trap? It doesn't know a way forward from that. And most importantly, sir, you keep talking about India's commitment. India's commitment is also to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. And if nothing else, the recent flood relief efforts by the Indian Army, which has brought in praise from all quarters, shows that India cares.
In fact,
it is not just that India is completely obsessed with its own line on Kashmir. And if you care for Kashmiris, what do you have to offer? Kashmiris want two things. They want financial betterment. And are you in a state to provide them that? Or they want a certain sense of security, and the way you have been knocking out Shias in your society, and Kashmiris, bulk of them being Shias, what sense of security can they hope for, even if, hypothetically speaking, Kashmir goes back to Pakistan?
In fact, Maruf, you know, what the greatest takeaway from this, and I'm going to go across to Rehan and Ahmed Rashid in some time. Those are pictures of the Indian Prime Minister who is just reached the hotel, and he's meeting a lot of Indian supporters who are fairly ecstatic at his arrival. This is from the Palace Hotel, where Navika Kumar is also reporting live. Just look at those pictures out there, and look at and contrast those two images, ladies and gentlemen. An embattled Prime Minister who reads out a script written for him by the Pakistani Army, written, and if I may say so, directed by the Pakistani Army, and an Indian Prime Minister who receives a hero's welcome from not just his own people, but from the government of the United States of America, goes on to now have a series of bilaterals in Washington, which could be the turning point in not just the India-America partnership, but also on India's power play at the global stage. It's so ironic that at a time like this, both the entry and the exit of Pakistan from the global stage, and the very strong re-entry of India into the real power play at the global level is happening at the same time. You turn the clock back 50 years at the time of the Cold War, when America made the mistake on investing in a country called Pakistan, and you see many American observers have themselves said that India turned out to be exactly what exactly the opposite of what Pakistan has turned out to be. The focus, therefore, Maruf, and I'd like to come back to you on this, increasingly is going to be on what Mr. Modi does. My guess is that Mr. Modi, who's in a fairly triumphant mood here in New York, will not respond to what the Pakistani Prime Minister says. In fact, if I may say so, the Indian Prime Minister perhaps would be ill-advised to respond in detail to the Pakistani Prime Minister, but perhaps, just make a perfunctory one-line statement which squares off but doesn't get into the kind of confabulation which Nawaz Sharif would like to see.
To quote an oft-repeated phrase, that to give dignity to all the claims made by Mr. Nawaz Sharif would be, I think, a diplomatic error by Prime Minister Modi, who at least in the last 100 days since becoming Prime Minister hasn't really taken a wrong step. Diplomatically even, which is an area where he is completely new.
I take your view.
So there is one issue. And the second thing is that I haven't seen, at least in the last decade or more, any Indian leader getting this kind of reception in the United States from the Indian community, and the kind of emotional outpouring that Mr. Modi is getting. It's like almost, they've been waiting for this messiah to arrive for decades.
Yeah, I think that's the American security. They also don't know how to deal with this situation, this unexpected situation where such fanfare follows the arrival of a foreign dignitary. Narendra Modi, clearly the rock star in New York this morning. I'd like to go back to our Pakistani guest. The question everybody is going to ask you this, and I think Maruf put it extremely eloquently, Air Marshal, is why do you use not just the Kashmir issue, why do you use the people of Kashmir? And that's why, because the immediate takeaway is that you wrote a different script last year when you were democratically elected the Prime Minister, when you were in a strong position. Allow me to complete, so I'll just give you three key points and you can respond then. Last time, one second, he did not rake up the plebiscite issue last time. He rakes it up now. Okay, he spoke about human rights violations. He discovers it. Now it's a recent discovery. He didn't do it the last time, sir. No, let me complete, sir. He plays victim vis-a-vis the cancelled talks. He tried to be statesman-like, demanding the talks. There's a clear departure in the script that he is reading out. The only suspicion which we have here, which is probably right, is that he didn't write the script. The ISI wrote the script and handed it over to him. Yes, sir. Why do you use the people of Kashmir in such an obvious manner?
Okay, now just give me 2 minutes. ISI writes a script or Pakistan Army writes a script. They are Pakistani organization. You should not have any problem with that, number one. Number two, he is Pakistan's Prime Minister and he has to do what people of Pakistan feel. Number three, Mr. Maroof has quoted
yes, we do,
the
because
UN resolution.
But then you might as well send the Pakistani army chief to deliver the UNGA speech. Sir, then you should, why should we not have a problem with it? We'd have a big problem with it because we knew Nawaz Sharif, he was very mellow on his Kashmir references last year. Now he takes a very different position.
He has... Mr. Nawaz Sharif can personally be a very good friend, but at state level,
you are making an admission that if a general writes your speech, you should not have an objection with it. Hussain Haqqani is smiling away as you say that. Mr. Haqqani would
I have no problem with that. Sir, everybody has a writer when you speak. But just let me finish. As far as the UN resolution is concerned, I have read all articles of that. For article number 2 that Mr. Maroof mentions, Pakistan and India both are culprits on that. They need to sit down and get over with that, whether it is a plebiscite, whether it is some other method. By telling that I haven't read or what, it doesn't answer the question. The fact is that there is a problem.
Sir,
there is something that you are always worried whether it is raised here.
The plebiscite demand is futile because
let's hear his full argument. Let's talk about what Mr. Vajpayee, Mr. Manmohan Singh and Pervez Musharraf had agreed. Let's go on to that. Let's talk about it. I mean, we are talking about peace between these two countries, which will not come until India comes to reality.
Sir, we are not talking about what the Pakistani Prime Minister said.
He has said exactly this, that since 60 years, India is avoiding even talks. When the secretaries want to talk, you suspend the talks in the name of this excuse or that. But let me tell you, Arnab, one day... Yes. जी मारूफ बोले आप
Marshal Saab, with due respects, I have great respect for you, but I want to just bring to your notice 2 or 3 quick points. One is that I think Pakistan failed to read the fact that India's new government was writing a new script. It was turning the corner, whereas obsessed as you are with going by your own historical benchmarks, you went on to do something which is engage with the separatists.
India has made no friendly gesture.
We should still talk to you. When this government says either you talk to us or talk to the separatists, that's one. Sir, hear me out. I heard you. Second point is, my humble submission to you, sir, and my friends in Pakistan, I don't think I have too many, but let me tell you that the window to seek and extract an arrangement with India is closing for Pakistan. Our economy is 16 times bigger than yours. By 2020, it will be 25 times bigger than yours. And by all senses that I have of the mood in India, people are not going to be willing to listen to you for too long. So if you wish to sit down and talk to us, it will be nice if you talk to us within the red lines that the government of Modi has defined.
So Maroof, I'm going to take a very short break here right now. I'd just like to say before I go into the break, the Pakistani Prime Minister has raked up the issue of a plebiscite in Kashmir again. Now, what he doesn't realize there that it is the greatest exercise in futility, because if Pakistan insists on a plebiscite, the standard reply from the Indian side is and will be, is it first willing to withdraw all its troops from Kashmir first, as mandated by the UN resolution? And as long as you don't do that, then you should really watch your words. In fact, to our guests in Pakistan, and Mr. Pirzada joins us, I don't know who wrote this script, but if I may say so, it is an illiterate man who wrote this script, a man who has neither an understanding of diplomacy, nor a person who has an understanding of history, and I suspect strongly a Pakistani military hand behind this script. We'll talk about why Nawaz Sharif read out this blooper of a script when I come back on the other side of a very short break.